Good morning. Welcome everyone to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where we join together to create a nourishing liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world, or as we say in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. There, thank you. Glad I have notes. I should try saying it every Sunday. Maybe I'll remember it then. Well, welcome everyone. We, as always, embrace all that you bring with you, all of your uniqueness, your unique beliefs, your background, your lifestyle, your experiences, your differences, all that helps make you who you are is welcome here today. And this includes those of you who are in the room with us, as well as the many of you who are streaming with us today as well. So thank you to one and all for being here. We have an amazing service ahead. The speaker is all over the place today, but the singing and the music is extraordinary. So looking forward to that. I do want to put a plug in for next Sunday's service. I will be out of the pulpit next Sunday, but one of my colleagues, Reverend Craig Morrow, will be speaking. He'll be remoting in from Oregon on a Zoom, but Craig he's spoken here before. He's a really gifted speaker and has a unique ability to take old stories and old history and turn it into a very relevant, timely message for us. And he's going to do that next week, and then he's actually going to be our guest speaker in August too. So I hope you'll show up and enjoy the wisdom of Reverend Craig Morrow next Sunday. Okay, yeah, I don't have any other announcements this morning, so why don't you take a few minutes to greet one another today? opportunity to visit with one another during our social hour, but let's move forward now by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who were cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need, and may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
In just a bit, Reverend Eklof is going to answer some of your questions on topics of your own choosing. The quotes I've chosen today are all related to questions, curiosity, and learning. Isn't it wonderful to be part of a church whose members demand and respect a free pulpit, where we have as its current steward a man who understands the significance of such a pulpit, recognizes the dire consequences of losing it, and continues to fight to preserve it. May we listen today to consider his words and to learn. Our opening reflection today is from T.H. White's The Once and Future King. "The best thing for being sad," replied Merlin, beginning to puff and blow, "is to learn something. That's the only thing that never fails. You may grow old and trembling in your anatomies. You may lie awake at night listening to the disorder of your veins. You may miss your only love. You may see the world about you devastated by evil lunatics, and know your honor trampled in the sewers of baser minds. There is only one thing for it then, to learn. Learn why the world wags and what wags it. That is the only thing which the mind can never exhaust, never alienate, never be tortured by, never fear or distrust, and never dream of regretting. Learning is the only thing for you. Look what a lot of things there are to learn."
Please stand as you're willing and able. Join me with Abide With Me, number 101. Abide with me, fast falls the eventide, the darkness deepens, still with me abide.
We are now going to kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds this morning. And we begin with a candle, as we have been for far too long now, on behalf of the people of Ukraine and that part of the world that are being most impacted by the increasingly devastating war and violence and death going on there. Also want to kindle a candle this morning on behalf of the people and the creatures and the planetary systems that are all suffering from the most dramatic heat we have seen in recorded history this summer. A lot of suffering, a lot of misery, and who knows what other repercussions. So we're thinking of everyone. Let's take a moment of silence on behalf of others whom you might be thinking of, and as always, you'd be welcome to name them aloud if you'd like. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. And we now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain this community and our mission to the larger world.
The most beautiful sound I ever heard. Maria, 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 Maria. All the beautiful sounds of the world in a single word. Maria, 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 Maria. Maria, Maria, Maria. I've just met a girl named Maria, and suddenly that name will never be the same to me. Maria, I've just kissed a girl named Maria, and suddenly I found how wonderful a sound. I'll never stop saying Maria,
commented during the first service that we need to change the order of service if I always have to follow Madeline. But I would love to invite the children to come up front. Good to see you, Gus and Ruby. Max, do you want to come down? You're good there? Comfy? Okay. Well, this morning's story is called Beyond Every Door, and it was written by Molly Hausch Gordon. Who here, kids and grown-ups, knows The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? All right, we've got a few people who are familiar. So, do you remember how Lucy discovers Narnia? All right, let's hear from Ruby. Yes, she finds the wardrobe. She is looking for the perfect place to hide, and she opens up a door to a big wardrobe. She goes through the door and into the back of the wardrobe, and suddenly she's in a whole new world. A magical world with witches and fauns and talking beavers. Wouldn't it be cool if there was a magical world behind every door? When Lucy opened the door to Narnia, it didn't look like anything special. It was just a boring door to a wardrobe full of boring clothes and boring coats. But across its threshold was magic. Lucy already had a foot in Narnia before she quite realized what was happening. Many of the thresholds in our lives are like this. We don't know that we're crossing into something new until we're already halfway there. The door of a church takes us down a pathway of new ideas. An ice cream shop opens onto meeting a best friend. The door to a library or a gym or a dance studio introduces you to a life's passion that you might not have otherwise discovered. We cross these thresholds every day of our lives. Even our own front door is a great threshold, no matter how familiar it is. Every day we open the same door again, only to step out into a world that is new since the day before. In this way, there is a new world behind every door, awaiting our discovery. And now join me in singing our children out to Play Club.
As we move into a time of meditation, you are invited to find a comfortable, receptive position. Close your eyes if you wish, take a few deeper breaths, and reflect on this quote by Nobel Prize-winning Swiss physicist Heinrich Rohrer. Learning means constantly walking a tightrope between blind faith and curiosity, between expertise and creativity, between bias and openness, between experience and epiphany, between ambition and passion, and between arrogance and conviction. In short, between an old today and a new tomorrow.
I tell you, as I said after you sang that in our first service, that, forget the conversations with Todd, let's have singing with Madeline. I mean, my goodness, thank you so much. That was, and for more of your beautiful accompaniment as always. You just tag along, yeah. Well, we're very fortunate to have such incredible talent in our midst on Sundays. Extremely fortunate. Thank you both for being here. So this is Conversations with Todd. This is something many of you have experienced before, where really I just sort of field open questions, try to keep them away from church business. That can be handled during business meetings and board meetings, that sort of stuff, but otherwise pretty open to responding to whatever's on your minds. And we have a microphone, I see, that so Julianne will pass that around, so if you'll wait, and Gordon's going to start. And then after I respond to Gordon's question, I'm going to actually open my phone up, because Doug Deaton, one of our board members, is streaming with us, and he sent me a question this morning, so I'll look and see what that is.
I'm Gordon Larson. Gene and I have been around this church for the last 50 years. And so I know I'm a different person today than last Sunday, than 50 years ago. So I'm bringing up the question that late Owen brought up at the end of this session last year. And what do you want of us as a congregation?
Thank you. Yeah, Owen asked that question. What do you want from us? What question do you want to ask us? And little did we know we wouldn't see Owen again. He passed away unexpectedly just a couple days later. Now, you stick around though, okay? Gordon. Okay, all right. But it's a great question, I think what I want for this congregation is to so much. I want you to remain in this community for another 134 years minimum. Being a true, when I say remain, I mean being a true voice of Enlightenment liberalism in this world. A religion that helps us connect with reality. In fact, I'm just talking to Madeline and Lynn earlier. Madeline's incredibly gifted musician. You'll get to know her, but she's very focused on connecting with the physical through song, being an embodied individual through song, and being able to help others have that same experience. And the thing I see happening in history is this great attempt of our species to transcend the limitations of our unawareness, of our unconsciousness. And there was a huge breakthrough, as you've heard me say before, 2,600 years ago, when the pre-Socratic philosophers, the early philosophers, suddenly started to try to understand the world by groping with the world. And that lasted for a couple of hundred years, and then it kind of got shut down by a more psychological approach. There was a lot of war and violence and whatnot, and Socrates emerged in Plato, and Socrates said, no, it's all about going inside. To thine own self be true, know thyself. And Plato said, oh, none of this is real, it's all what's in your head is what's real. And Aristotle tried to compensate for that and actually invented reason, logic, as a formal approach. And Aquinas tried to bring Aristotle's Aristotle was known as the walking philosopher, because that's how he taught. He walked through nature, stayed grounded, and taught while he was being inspired by the real world. All that went away for a millennium during the Middle Ages, and then it began to reawaken again during the Renaissance, in which again there was this idea of rediscovering what is, of dealing with reality, not ideas. And that flourished during the Enlightenment, in which we founded, our knowledge was founded on reason and science and evidence, right? And when this church was founded toward the tail end of that, in 1887, it put in its bylaws that the purpose of this church is to crush superstition. And the source of our knowledge will be science and reason. And nobody shall be censured for heresy. 1887. That's how this church was started. I'm sure the founders would be aghast at what has happened to Unitarian Universalism today if they knew all the wild beliefs that are going on in the Unitarian Universalist Church. But you see, at that same time, after the Enlightenment, it was hit with Romanticism, and then this, this post-Kantian philosophy that said reason is garbage. Reason can't put us in touch with what's real. It's no good. And that led to postmodernism and just this chaotic kind of delusional thinking that, no, it's whatever you want to believe is true, because no truth is truth. There's no objective truth. Nothing can put us in touch with it. And of course, the empiricists and the Enlightenment thinkers will say, well, of course it's imperfect. But, the air we're breathing is imperfect too, that we don't hold our breaths, right? The water we drink has impurities in it, but we still have to drink it, right? So reason, logic, empiricism, science, of course they don't lead to perfect answers, to absolute answers. But it's the best, we believe it's the best we have for groping at the real world. But it's not a yo-yo. It's not like, a pendulum swings back and forth. No, it's little tiny bursts. And when these moments come, these rare moments of enlightenment come, there's this small burst of advancement in human civilization. And then it gets crushed by the people who say it's illegitimate to use reason. It's illegitimate to use empiricism. Science doesn't work. It's all about what's inside. That's how we know what's true. Isn't it beautiful? Isn't it beautiful, my feelings? You can count on my feelings. So it doesn't work for liberals. We're in dire need of a new burst of human advancement. And that's why our church has to thrive. So what I want from you is to just be here. To be here in this world, because this world needs you. And it needs this church. That'd be my short answer. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So I'm gonna go with Doug's question real quick, and then Wayne, I'll come to you. Is that okay? So Doug Deaton asked, let me see, got to be reminded. I'd like to hear you talk more about the distinction between a mystical atheist and a plain old atheist. Okay, that's a great question. I think I can be quick on this. So, an atheist is somebody who does not believe in a personal God. And now some people will hear me speak and they'll say, well, you're not an atheist, you're an agnostic. I say, no, I'm an atheist because I don't believe there's a personal God. Could be wrong, although there's no reason for me to think I'm wrong, but I don't believe in it. I have no question in my mind that there's not, well, I do have questions in my mind, but I'm not doubtful of my disbelief in a God. See, an agnostic says, well, I don't know. I could go one way or the other. So I'm an atheist. And an atheist is someone who has a disbelief in a personal God. I sometimes jest that just because I'm an atheist doesn't mean I don't believe in God. Because if you take it outside of that two-dimensional approach to it, right, where most of us, when we hear the word God, God is the name of a person. That's how we treat it in Western religion. God is the name of a person. I don't believe in that person. I don't believe that person exists. Any more than I believe any kids in here in Santa Claus. But, and I'm not, I hear people all the time talk about these angry atheists. I've never met any. I don't go around pushing my ideas. I don't dislike people who believe in God or disagree with me on that. I just don't believe. In fact, I had a good friend, a conservative Christian, not too long ago say, let me ask you something. What happened to you? How'd you go from being a Baptist to an atheist? And I said, well, nothing happened. There wasn't any great disillusionment, which is a strange word anyway. I'd rather be disillusioned than illusioned. But there wasn't anything that happened. I just don't believe anymore. I don't believe that Jesus is the Son of God. I don't believe that he was born of a virgin or walked on water or rose from the dead. I don't believe that the Bible is the authoritative Word of God. I don't have any reason to believe that such things are true or could happen. So I just stopped believing. I grew out of it. I wasn't angry or hurt or anything. But he's a dear friend. He thinks differently than I do. We don't argue about that. We don't fight about it. We can ask each other questions. How come you don't believe this? How come you do? It's okay. All right, so I'm not an angry atheist. So atheism refers to those who don't believe in God. But if you want to theologize principles, right, if God is not a person, but a principle or a value system, God is love, like one of the Christian messages, or God is mercy, as Islam teaches us, or God is justice, as the Hebrew prophets taught us, or God is truth, as Gandhi believed. Now you're theologizing about values that I have. And so, yes, I believe in those. And if those are what God is, then I believe in God. Right? If they're equivalent by another name, then I believe in them. So this gets close to what the atheistic mystic is. So Erich Fromm is the social psychologist I borrowed this term from. And what he acknowledges that, God is a principle, not a person, not a thing, not an object, but the principles that we say God is supposed to uphold: love and mercy and justice and truth. That's what God is. But the more that one tries to describe God, what God is, the more inaccurate you become. Okay, that's the mystic. The mystic is one who thrives in the mist, in the mystery. They thrive on it. They delight in not knowing. The higher he climbs, the less he understands, said St. John of the Cross. What is God? Meister Eckhart said, God is absolute nothing. So mysticism believes the more you talk about God, the farther away from it you get. There's a wonderful mystical commandment in the Hebrew Scriptures that you're not supposed to talk about God. Right? It's a mistake. This is the God who supposedly led us through the wilderness as a fiery ball, during the night, the very symbol of constant change, or as a cloud during the day, a nebula. And the God who told Moses, you want to know my name? My name is I'm always changing. You tell them that. They want to put their finger on me. You tell them that my name is always changing. And by the way, here's a commandment, tell them not to talk about me. Okay, so this is where this idea comes that we don't talk about God. We can't even comprehend, right? Like you said, well, you can't even comprehend me, Moses. Get over there, shield your eyes, and I'll moon you a little bit. Okay, that's the best that you can understand. Maybe a little bit about what I leave behind. Right? I mean, it's a very comical story if you understand it in that light. So the atheistic mystic is somebody who may believe in something we might define as God, but considers it unethical, immoral, wrong, mistaken to talk about God. You just practice your values. That's how you express your belief in God. You don't ever say the word. So that's the difference between an atheistic mystic and an atheist. And you can be an atheist and an atheistic mystic, but you can also be an atheistic mystic and not an atheist. So hopefully that helps. Okay. Wayne? Oh, you're going to get a microphone here, so.
Thanks, Todd. Could you bring us up to speed on the status of the, I believe you call it North America Ministers Association?
The North American Unitarian Association?
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
yes. We do have a small group involved in that's working on the ministry end of it, so wanted to be clear. But yeah, so North American Unitarian Association was announced in this pulpit, I think it was December 22nd of last year, if I remember correctly. It was certainly December. We'd hoped to have a website up within about a month. You really don't exist without a website. And it took us longer than we anticipated. So March, really, the website went up. And the website, I still haven't promoted NAUA. That's part of the overall plan. But right now, it's still about putting the proper structures in place so that it's a really functional organization. But the first day, we had 37 members. And now we have well over 100, I think about 150, 200 individual members. That is people who joined as individuals. And we have now 4 organizational members, that is congregations. Well, 3 of them are congregations. So there's the UU Church of the Shoals, UUCS, in Florence, Alabama, that is an official member of NAUA. And then there is the Hayward NAUA Fellowship, which is a break-off church that is actually the first official NAUA fellowship in existence that is a member. And then we have UMIAC, which is not a church, but as you know, is a racial, an organization that is working towards racial justice through a common humanity approach that has joined. And they will probably become the arm of our racial justice work. In fact, that's the plan. And then our congregation, UUCS, we're probably the largest organizational membership. And what happens is the individual members in those organizations then become like individual members in ours, right? So you all get a vote. You're a voting member of NAUA, that sort of thing. And we've accomplished quite a lot, right? We immediately created Liberal Beacon. I don't know how many of you have seen that monthly magazine style newsletter. If not, you can go online. Of course, we do have a website. We've gotten, Lynn's our official treasurer right now. We have our articles of incorporation. We have all sorts of basic founding documents that we got taken care of. We're working on 501c3 status. That's something that will take about a year and a half. You actually have to have a track record before they'll grant you that. And provisional, but we have a provisional board in place, provisional bylaws. We call them provisional because until we have an annual meeting where our members can actually vote to approve bylaws and approve board members, we don't consider it a legitimate democratically adopted leadership. So we'll wait until that day comes, hopefully within a year to a year and a half of our existence. We have the North American Unitarian Association Academy, where they have, right now it's a course a month. They're going to skip August, but then they'll be back with some pretty interesting speaker in September. We have a monthly service that's on a Saturday. Is it the second Saturday or third Saturday? Third Saturday is the third Saturday, right, Tom, of every month, 10 a.m. Pacific, so that we can be at a reasonable hour for people. And we have members from all over the continent now. The last worship service we did a couple weeks ago, we had people from the U.S., people from Canada, and even people attending from Mexico. So it was a transcontinental, actually somebody from Europe too was joining us. So we had a real international group attending. So yeah, we've accomplished quite a lot. We want to build in opportunities for more of the interactions. So the real purpose of NAUA is to reestablish the sense of support and community and belonging to something larger than ourselves that we established the UUA for. The UUA was our service organization that we were giving money to so that they could do this for us. They're not doing it anymore, so we're going to do it for ourselves in the hope that if they come around in a decade or so, wonderful. Be wonderful. We'll welcome our brothers and sisters back into relationship with open arms and hearts. If not, liberal religion still survives, maybe even thrives for the first time in decades. That's my goal. I want us to be the spark for the next enlightenment, because that's what the world needs. Otherwise, why are we here? The biggest issue we have right now is ministerial supply. And honestly, that was a big reason for me wanting to start NAUA, is when I leave this congregation, I want to leave it better than when I found it. And I don't know where you're going to get a liberal minister right now. According to the information I have, the average new ministers in the UUA up until 2 years ago was somewhere between 25 and 30 a year. Now, the last 2 years, it was 5 and 8 respectively, right? And they just went through a period trying to get interims to churches. Over a third of the congregations couldn't even get interim ministers. So there's a huge clergy shortage of liberal clergy, and that's also NAUA's problem. How are we going to do that? That's a big piece of why we're here. We are working on solving that problem. Our approach is going to be much different than the UUA's approach. The UUA has, in my opinion, they circumvented our autonomy by creating this MFC, the Ministerial Fellowship Committee, which is a credentialing body. So even though it is our tradition that only the local church ordains and calls ministers and installs them, only the local church, the UUA cannot make a minister. They have no authority to do that. And yet they put in their bylaws a but. Only the local church has the local church has the sole authority to ordain, install, call ministers, but only the MFC, the Ministerial Fellowship Committee, has the authority to welcome ministers into its fellowship. And by the way, we just put a little tiny doorway there between you and those ministers. So unless we approve them, we're not going to let them get to you, and we're not going to let you get to them. And that's the way it's been. So they have found a workaround on our autonomy. And NAUA is committed to getting rid of that doorway and opening it wide open. Remember that some of our best ministers in history, some of our most notable figures in history, came to us from another tradition altogether. John Dietrich, you know, he came to us right after being declared a heretic by the Lutheran Church, or the Dutch Reformer branch of it, and became one of the most noteworthy figures in history. We want the congregations to decide what credentials you are looking for. We'll prescribe best practices, do background checks. Here's how you can do that. check the references. Please do that. Get some, determine what level of experience you want. Check if they have an education or not. But this is going to open it up to people who you don't have to save money to go into an expensive ministerial search that might fail. Where you're not going to, you can do it any time of the year you want, and you get to decide what kind of ministry you want. I think we're going to create a level of richness and diversity in ministry that we have not seen since before 1961. So those are some of the things going on. That's the biggest hurdle. It's going to be the hard one. I'll be meeting with some folks again this week. But right now we have altogether over 600 members. Our goal is to have 1,000 the first year. And we just upgraded our website on Monday. So you can check us out on the website. By the way, if you're a member of this congregation, you can always join as an individual as well. And
That's my question. How do I do that?
okay, you can go to the website and join us. And by the way, we do rely upon the generosity of our members. We do not have a minimum or a maximum. We want to put the onus for our finances on us. Right? In other words, rather than saying, oh, this is how many members you have, or this is what your budget is, that you have to give us this much to be considered a fair share congregation. We're going to say, no. You give to us because you want to. If we're not adding value to your life and to your congregational life, don't give us a penny, please. We don't deserve it. So, yeah.
Is the reason for joining as an individual mainly related to donations?
Wait, so he said, is the reason for joining as an individual mainly related to donations? No, you can contribute without joining as an individual. I think, so the reason we have individual membership is because we recognize that, and Tom, I'll get to you in just a minute because I know you have a question too. The reason we had individual members is because we recognize a lot of us have become unchurched, right? We could know a lot of people around the continent no longer felt comfortable going to their church and they needed a place to belong. So for example, we have Church of the Larger Fellowship. That has people that maybe are inmates in prison that are part of that. And yeah, go ahead, Gordon.
But if we are a member of this church, why should we join?
Oh, if you are? Well, my hope is that you don't have to. Some people want to just because they want to feel like they're also an independent. Yeah. It's just more of a way of further supporting the organization. You won't get 2 votes if you do, So it's more of just a sort of, hey, and you joined actually, didn't you? You get 2 votes. Yeah, we'll give you 2 votes, but nobody else. So yeah, I mean you can, but you don't have to. But you can certainly. We are not asking the congregation to support us. We hope individuals will go online and support us. So now Tom has his hand up, and then Sue. Okay, yeah, Tom.
Just as a follow-up to what that conversation was, if it's not already been in our Sun on a regular basis, can you put a link in our Sun about how we can become individual members? Would you do that, please?
Yes.
Okay.
We can do that. Will you help me remember that? Thank you.
Okay, good.
By the way, I'm pushing Lynn to become our vice president of NAUA because I want to see her be the next president after me. So I shouldn't have said that. Yeah. What? Was I not supposed to say that? I'm sorry.
Okay, Mike.
I guess I haven't pushed her hard enough. She didn't even know about it.
Okay, my question that I had was, I'm a fairly passionate supporter of the separation of church and state. And of course, it's under extraordinary assault by many, many people, organizations saying that we were founded as a Christian nation, which then, further complicates the issue of separating church and state and the value that has. What do you see as something that our church can do, or that this community can do, to be more supportive of educating people that we were not founded as a Christian nation and that we have a real reason to keep church and state separated?
Yeah. Well, I think the short answer is the one I gave to Gordon earlier, which is to remain. Right. This is because this principle is one of our founding principles as Enlightenment thinkers, that there should be a separation of church and state. It was really the Unitarians and the Universalists who gave us separation of church and state. And there's a reason for that, right? Because we are committed to freedom, and we are committed to reason, and we are committed to tolerance. All of those require us to be free from any sort of religious, be it traditional religious as in Christianity, or even some sort of social religion, like communism or Marxism or something, for example, that cropped up, that would say you have to believe this or you're going to go get re-educated or something. So this is part and parcel of what it means to be an Enlightenment liberal, to have this value. And having a presence in this world under the circumstances you're talking about is one of the most important things that we can do. And then secondly, it would be to actually talk about it, to be aware that is our value, to hear it from your pulpit, to be a church that promotes the idea. And then if there is something going on in the community or world that is threatening, to somehow intermingle the two, that we raise our voices in whatever way we can. Be it writing our newspapers, joining a protest, writing our legislators, those sort of things that we can do. So that'd be my answer to that. And then Sue.
Hi, I'm Sue Stieritz. Twice I've heard you say lately, Todd, today being one, when I leave this church. And it makes me squirm. And I'm a realist. I know that you're young and you just very well may do that. But it makes me think more immediate. It makes me think about the NAUA. And could you give us a little enlightenment if you are even aware of that?
Yes, I have no plans to leave the church. Thank you. Thank you. Anytime soon. I appreciate you saying I'm young. I'll be 60 in May. And so, I realize that you can hardly believe that. But no, it's true. I'm not. I kid you not. I'm kidding. But I also realize I'm going to be 60, and so the clock runs out on the energy we have and how long we're able to work and those sort of things. And I knew that, as I said in a sermon a few weeks ago, 4 years ago when we were going through this really tumultuous period inside our congregation, and we had some folks that would not have applauded if I said I'm not planning on going anywhere. That was a very stressful time, as you know, for all of us. And I did not think that I would survive that. It ended up being right in the midst of COVID, so you guys couldn't come together and weren't allowed to express what you were thinking. So, the board had hired an attorney. They were trying to force me into negotiations to end my contract. So I didn't think that I would survive that. But the truth is I didn't really want to, because I didn't believe in the religion anymore. I mean, I still was me. I still had my values, but I was like, why would I want to continue to be a Unitarian minister in this world? I like things that make me happy. And I stayed because so many of you were supporting me. And in the end, you actually came together as a congregation and forced the issue, right? You said, no, leave the man alone. We're keeping him. We'll get rid of you. And so now I was like, okay, how can I leave this congregation knowing that they're not going to be able to replace me under the circumstances? and I'm not bragging about myself, there are no liberal ministers available right now. So somebody you would get would be somebody that would be hand-selected, funneled through the UUA to come in and fix you because of your flawed thinking. And so now I had this moral obligation to be here for the people that have supported me and the people that I love. And when it became clear that the UUA is not going to shift anytime soon, and nobody else was going to do what needed to be done, which was to start another organization, and I took that on, I suddenly found a lot of purpose and meaning again. And not to say that the church is meaningless. I love being here with you and speaking, but NAUA gives me hope that what we're doing is meaningful here, that what we're doing will survive. And it goes back to the first thing, right? Remain. That's what we have to do. We have to remain. And that's what NAUA is, part of that philosophy. So, Don. Wait for the microphone here, Don, and then there we go.
Well, since you're talking about what's happened with religion, I'm mystified by how the seminaries have changed to, I guess, the party line, and I would think our thinkers would have been part of the seminary system and would not have been indoctrinated so soon. Do you see any hope that the seminaries might recover their thinking?
The seminaries, so just for a background for those of you who don't know, there are really two Unitarian seminaries, one in the West Coast, Star King in California, and then one in Chicago called Meadville Lombard. That's where I received my doctorate. And it's, some ministers go to Harvard and Tufts, and there's all sorts of other schools of theology that our ministers go to. But those are the two UU seminaries, and they have become, like almost any academic institution in North America, well, in Western culture these days, almost run by the, what's the old line about the asylum is being run by the inmates, right? Basically being run by students who are often incapable of dealing with reality or afraid to mention reality for fear of ostracization, and professors and whatnot become paranoid. In the meantime, there tends to be there's been this potential over time or tendency over time, I should say, to hire professors that have the same mindset, to get rid of long-standing professors and then bring in presidents and that sort of thing. So at Meadville, the UUA appointee to run Meadville Lombard started right after, or right before I think it was just as I gave out the Gadfly papers. And one of the first things they did a month later was fire me as an adjunct teaching professor from Meadville Lombard with no explanation, right? So I don't see those seminaries coming around, but it may be surprising, when you think about it happening in academia, but that's really where it started. Even postmodernism was gifted to the world by American colleges. Okay, that's where the disbelief in reason really took root, and was nurtured over 200 years until it became what it is today. Postmodernism being, again, a disbelief in science, a disbelief in common humanity, an aggrandizement of subjectivism and emotionalism, those sort of things. So it's not surprising that our seminaries got hit with it too. I don't see them. I don't see them coming back any sooner than the rest of academia. Although I'm personally of the mindset that colleges and universities, as we know them, should go away. They don't do any good, and they're unnecessary. They do more harm than good, and they're unnecessary. Not to say that you shouldn't have an education, but if we're not teaching liberal arts, right, which is what makes good citizens, and we can get that in other means, If going to college is just to get a job, it's way too much. It's called indentured servitude at that point. When you have to go into deep debt to get a degree just so you can get an interview somewhere, that's called indentured servitude. Okay? And meanwhile, your kids are getting indoctrinated, and as some say, they're being turned into weaklings, incompetent for living in society because they can't deal with reality. At least that's what we're being taught. And they're being taught that you can believe whatever you want. There's no such thing as reason or objective truth, which is one of the things that's happening now, as these folks who've been educated in this for several decades now have gotten old enough to enter into leadership positions and have taken over most of the progressive organizations and convinced them that they have an internal issue with white supremacy and other things of injustice, and we need to fix ourselves before we can do anything in the world. Hence, nothing is being done in the world. So it's a real problem, Don, but I don't see it turning around. Plus now with technology we can do precision education. Right, we do precision education, so we don't need those degrees. We don't need to be putting our kids in debt. We have this huge debt crisis right now. President Biden tried to alleviate some of it, and that got waylaid. But that's a real issue. When I went to college, I didn't get any financial help. I was a poor kid. I went to an out-of-state private college. For 4 years, I stayed in the same dumpy little dorm room and had to walk down the hall to use the restroom with everybody else. They didn't even have walls. There's 3 toilets sitting next to each other. That gives you grit, let me tell you that. Okay? And it cost me $8,000. Room, board, tuition. I had to work. I worked on the maintenance, for the maintenance department. Got minimum wage from Uncle Sam. So work study. And that's how I paid for college. You can't do that today. And you're not getting the liberal arts part of it either, which is what makes you a human being. See, I went to college to become a human being. That's why I studied philosophy. I went to college to become a human being. I didn't go to college to make a living. Okay, one more. Sorry, I'm ranting. Yep.
Sorry, this is a quick question. Did you say 8,000 for the full 4 years?
Yeah, 8,000 for the full 4 years.
As someone who's 29 who's done college recently, that kind of makes my head explode. So just
Yes.
putting a plug out there for, I agree with what you're saying, because holy moly, I have
Yeah.
friends in over 100K of debt from
Yeah.
just undergrad.
Right, no. And I know people who went, in the 60s and 70s that would say 8,000 was too much. Right, so, but keep in mind that it's not just inflation, right? Because the cost has skyrocketed to where it's a much larger, just like housing, it's a much larger percentage of our paychecks than it used to be. So it's not really just inflation. And when colleges treat their students like when a college treats students like clients instead of pupils, then they have to give them something for their resource, for their money, right? For all that money they're investing. And it may not be a quality education. Okay, so one more over here, and then we'll, sorry, I know I said one more, but we'll just give.
No, it's just a comment.
Oh, a comment, good, okay.
I graduate with my master's in May, and when I'm done, I will owe about 80,000.
80,000, yeah. Yeah, and I can assure you that 80,000 is not comparable. It's not even realistic. I mean, I'm not working for minimum wage now, right? But that 80,000 is insurmountable. Whereas working for minimum wage, 8,000 was not insurmountable. I was going to have it done. Yeah. So okay. Well, I hope that you have the kind of job that is going to enable you to pay that. You have a plan. Good, yeah. All right. Yeah, it's a lot of money. It's indentured servitude, right? You have to pay for the right to work. Okay. We got to leave on a positive note. Ask me. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Todd. Whoa! All right. Let's sing. Let's see. Stand if you would like and open to 298. Wake now my senses. Yes, that's possible. Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with the web of creation your vow. Giving, receiving as love shows us how. Wake now compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end. Wake now my vision of ministry clear, brighten my pathway with radiance here. Mingle my calling with all who will share, work toward a planet transformed by our care.
Our benediction today is from Nigerian writer Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. If you don't understand, ask questions. If you're uncomfortable about asking questions, say you are uncomfortable about asking questions, and then ask anyway. Oh, sorry. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.
Shalom.